Welcome to the Batty Girls Book Club podcast channel. I'm Danielle.
And I'm Stephanie.
And we are two chatty baddies who love to talk about books and provide digestible plot overviews of our, and hopefully your, favorite books. We do strive to be spoiler-free as we work through each episode. However, we are offering special bonus episodes after each book where we can share theories, spoilers, and discuss our favorite and not so favorite characters.
With that being said, today we are going to cover the first book of the series, A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. So without further ado, let's get into our first episode. Now, before we even get into the plot, we should talk about the setting and our main characters. So it's winter, we're in a forest hunting with our main character, Farah, who's a 19-year-old human girl who's completely starved. Like, Mama is skin and bones. Farah lives in a not-so-nice cottage with her father, Papa Archeron, and her two sisters, Elaine, who's between 20 and 21, and Nesta, who's 22. Farah is basically the only one who's keeping the house running. She's feeding everyone. She's our huntress. So my initial thought when I was reading this is, why is the youngest sister in the family the only one who's going out and doing anything? Papa Archeron, he's down bad. Like, you know the phrase, rags to riches? This family is the complete opposite. They were doing good, but Papa Archeron got involved in some scam where he ended up losing a lot of the family's money. He wasn't able to repay it, and now he's got a bad leg because when the debt collectors came to recover the money, they beat the living socks out of him for not having the money. As for the sisters, we'll find out more about them as the books go on, but my first impression off the bat is that they're not helpful, and like my Nana says, shout out Nana, they need a little bit of fire under them.
Agree.
Anyway, at this point in the series, the two geographies to know are 1, Preceding, aka the fairy lands, and 2, the mortal lands, which are separated by a magical line called the Wall. Being human, Farah, of course, lives in the mortal lands with her family. I'm going to call out here that the entire book is in Farah's point of view. I personally think this was a really great idea on SJM's part because we are so confused on what the heck is going on. We had a dual POV between Farah and Tamlin or future characters, like it just wouldn't hit the same.
And I feel like also smart on her part because there's a lot of things that we don't know the answers to yet, that Farah doesn't know the answers to yet. And if we saw other people's point of view, like Tamlin, we would know what these like secrets are that people are keeping from her before we find out as Farah the character. So I think it was smart on her part, being a little sneaky and keeping some things to, guessing. I love that.
We love that. So Farah's hunting in the woods and she comes across a massive wolf who she's kind of thinking might be a fairy based on the size of the wolf, the proximity to the fairy realm, and also this wolfie is unnaturally stealthy. So like any logical huntress would do, Farah decides to kill the wolf because kill or get killed. She successfully does, come to find out just a tad later that, oopsie, it was a fairy, and apparently she inadvertently violated a treaty between the humans and the fairies. What? Shortly after the kill, a fairy beast, who we later learn is named Tamlin, breaks into her home and gives Farah 2 very convincing options. She can either die, love that, or she can go with the beast to Prithian. Gosh, like, how do you even choose between the two? So you're Farah in this situation. What are you going to do?
I mean, I feel like the choice was so obvious. You got to follow the fairy beast. You don't want to die. We already know that she has, some sense of self-preservation. She's like out hunting in the wintertime to feed her family and herself. She's going to Prithian, guys. Buckle up. She's going.
So again, I agree with Farah's decision. If I am putting myself in Farah's shoes, my sister and I joke about this all the time, that if something like a zombie apocalypse were to take over, take me out day one. I don't want to be here for that. So like, if you're in the same situation and a beast comes to your door and is like, babe, you're either dying or you're coming back to this land that you've heard nothing but bad things about, just take me out. Well, Farah does go to Prithian, and she ends up at a place called the Spring Court, where we learn that the beast Tamlin can shapeshift between beast form and fairy form, and we meet two other important characters. We meet a male character named Lucian, who's emissary of the Spring Court, and a female character named Alice, who's a servant within the manor in the Spring Court. As weird as this whole situation is, Farah's not treated badly. Like, she's well fed, she has a bedroom for herself, and the only stipulation is that she just can't leave Prithian. And to make matters even more confusing, no one's even being mean to her. And I'm not sure why, because she literally killed their kind.
Yes, I was so confused. Like, Farah had this idea that she was going to be held prisoner. She was probably going to be in a dungeon. And we get there and they're like, here's your bed, sis. Here's your room to yourself. Like, this is your kingdom now, basically. And I'm like, wait a minute. Aren't we mad at her? Why are we treating? I mean, I'm glad we're treating her well.
Looking back on it, I feel like this makes sense because they were viewing her as the girl who could end the curse with Tamlin. So when you finish the book and you look back, it makes sense that she would be treated so well. But at the time, I did not understand what was going on.
Agree.
So Tamlin is being nice, and he's also kind of into her. He's showering her with compliments, making sure she has what she needs, and so on. But I think it's very important for us to note he does have a mask covering his face, and Farah's just not vibing with any of this, and he's trying to flirt with her. She's avoiding spending time with him because obviously she's still not sure why she's here and why this beastie boy is low-key hitting on her and how she's going to proceed with all this.
That's so confusing, again, because I'm glad we're talking about this, because especially in my first read, I'm like, why is he hitting on her? Why is he asking her to hang out so much? Like, he basically dragged her from her family and was like, you have to come with me because of a treaty. Like, I'm angry with you. Like, he was clearly mad at her. And now he's like, oh, you're kind of cute. And that's confusing to me. And of course, like, that would give her mixed messages too.
And you know what? This is a fantasy genre. There is no world where if this happened that someone's captor would, one, be handsome, and two, bring them into a mansion where they have the best food that they've ever eaten in their whole life.
Agree. That's the fiction side of it for sure. Okay, so Tam Tam opens up about some of the happenings in his lands, and that's when Farah learns about a blight that's taking over Prithian. I've never heard of the word blight in my life, so this took me for a loop for a minute. I was like, what the heck in Bob is a blight? This blight that they speak of, obviously it's something bad, is the reason all of the fairies she has met so far have the mask stuck on their face. Okay, that makes sense. Farah, ever the family gal, is rightfully concerned about the well-being of her family because if there's a blight on Prithian, her family is right next to the wall. She's a smart girly. She's like, okay, can this blight hop on over the wall? Like, we hopped over the wall, through the wall, whatever. And Tamlin says, nah, it's okay. They're fine, I'm sure, for now. Okay, thanks, Tamlin. Like, that's really reassuring for our girl Farah, who obviously cares so much. So she's starting to put the pieces together. She remembers that the mercenary in the market, when she sold the wolfie pelt, told her about rumors of fairies attacking the mortal land. So, despite Tamlin trying so hard to make her feel better, she is rightfully worried. Farah tries to find ways to escape Prithian many times. This girl's trying to get out again. She quickly realizes that she needs help. What better way to get Tamlin to do what she wants than to get close to Lucian? Smart. So she does. You know, she's going on hunts with him. They're hanging, they're chilling. Everything's very platonic. But one of the hunts that they go on together, the one where she told Tamlin that she didn't want to do anything and she wanted to be alone, and she went off with Lucian anyways. Sorry, Tamlin. They run into a nasty, like, out of your nightmares, chill you to the bone creature called the Bog. Not the bogey, not the boogie, the Bog. And everything in the forest goes still. And she feels a cold chill around her. Like, even the horses are like, I'm not moving. And she gets her bow. She's ready, to fight as our girl, our huntress, does. And Lucian's like, put your bow down. Look straight. Do not look at this creature. And Farah's like, okay. And so she does what he says. And this Bog is screaming in her mind, saying, look at me, just creepy things, saying it wants to eat her and, fill its belly with her and just creepy nightmare stuff. And it's like everything in her wants to look at it. It's like when someone says, don't look, like they're doing something weird. And of course you want to look. Your first instinct is to look. Girl's trying to look. Yeah.
Take me out the mortal lands because I will be looking at the bog.
Yes,
I don't need to be here.
Steph wouldn't have made it at this point anyway, so it's okay. So she doesn't look at the bog, thank goodness, and she lives. Woohoo! Lucian lives. They get back to the manor, and they walk in. Tam Tam's all jealous, and they tell him about the bog. And now he is in full-on beastie hunting mode. So he leaves. He's going to kill the bog. And she watches for his return from the window. So she's peering out the window, waiting for her beastie boy to come back. And as she's looking, she's like, I see a man out there. Wait a second, that's not Tamlin. It's Papa Archeron. So she has all these thoughts going through her head, like, how did he get here? What about his bum leg? Like, she's like, I'm just going to scale out the window, down the trellis, and go to the garden and, like, see my dad. And so she does that. And as she is walking towards her father, a hand grasps her shoulder with claws. And it's Tamlin. And he's like, what are you doing, girl? What are you doing? It looks like she's trying to make a great escape. So I think he's like, excuse me. And she's like, no, my dad's here. And he's like, what are you talking about? And she looks back over to where she saw her father, and he's gone. So Tamlin tells her, that was not your father, obviously. It was a puka. And the puka was playing a trick on you. So puka's this creature, this like light-filled creature that can change into different people shapes and basically totally mess with her senses. As people have warned her already, keep your wits about you, fair girl. Your senses will try to trick you here. So Tamlin asks her, what do you want? And she's like, I want to go home. Basically, Sandy Cheeks from SpongeBob. She wants to get out of here. Farrah, hellbent on getting out of this place, she starts mapping exits on a piece of paper with symbols. And you might ask, why is she not just writing like exit, door, escape route? It's because she can't read. So we find out she can't read, and that comes back later in the book. And I feel for a girl. Like, she has been through it. It definitely shows a little bit more to, I think, of like the environment she grew up in and living in the poverty that she lived in. And I think it's all just like a nod to that as well. So another way that Farrah decides to get some answers to help her get out of this treaty is through advice that Lucian gives her. He talks about this creature called a Suriel that can give you all the answers you want. And Farrah's like, I have lots of questions that need answering. So she, slyly or not so slyly, starts asking Lucian, like, oh, how would one catch a Suriel? And he's like, chicken and be in the West Woods and, trap it and yada, yada, yada. He gives her the tea on how to trap this Suriel. So she's like, okay, great. Bye. Runs to the kitchen, grabs the chicken. She's off. So our girl is in the Western Woods. She's ready to trap a Suriel. And guess what? She does. So she captures this Suriel, which is like this bony, scary looking, creepy creature, like all the creatures we're learning about in these forests. And she asks the Suriel, can I go home? Can I get out of this treaty? How? And the Suriel's like, not unless you have a death wish for you and your family. And lucky for us, she doesn't, because it would be a very boring story if she died here. She also asks the Suriel about her beastly captor, Tamlin, to which the Suriel says, be more specific, girl. I know a lot about the High Lord of the Spring Court. Did they say High Lord? And the Suriel's like, ooh, I guess you didn't know. And she's like, no, I didn't know. And so one of the pieces of advice that really sticks with Farrah throughout the book that the Suriel gave her is that the Suriel says, stay with the High Lord and all will be right, or something like that. But basically, stay with the High Lord. That is my advice to you.
So despite a crazy introduction to the Spring Court, Farrah starts to ease into her new life and has some growing romantic tensions with Tamlin. Even though she wasn't really down initially, she's kind of coming around.
I'm thinking like maybe his persistence is working. It's paying off. I don't know.
I feel like she has made a little bit of a 180 here. She went from get away from me to, oh, he looked kind of handsome today.
I feel like there's a very fine line with being persistent and then being like annoyingly creepy. So he's like riding the line a little bit, but I think it could just be persistence.
It's paying off. We get a bit of insight into what Farrah's family knows about her whereabouts. The extent of that being that they know that she's safe, but they have no memories of the night that Farrah was taken. We also get a little historical character building in this section. We get more details on our guy Lucian, who is the youngest son of the High Lord of the Autumn Court. And Lucian fell in love with a lesser fae. So Lucian's father, who's way too salty, did not approve of their relationship, and so he sent Lucian's gal for execution, all for just being in love, and his super caring, nice loving brothers held him down to watch. Like, I don't understand what Lucian's father's deal is, but I guess that's beside the point. Lucian and all of his brothers really wanted to be High Lord, and Lucian didn't. So he was like, I'm just gonna go out and do a bunch of things that will make me not qualified to be High Lord. I do think it's important to note that when all of this came about with Lucian's dad, that is when Lucian decided to come to the Spring Court. So he was at the Autumn Court, he came over to the Spring Court, and that's how we ended up buddy-buddy with our guy Tamlin. We do also learn a little bit of history about Tamlin's family, that his father and his brothers were killed by a High Lord of an enemy court. We don't know who, what, where, when, why that is yet, but we do know that that's how Tamlin became the High Lord of the Spring Court, even though he didn't really want it. So while Farrah is just hanging out in her new home, she finds out about some party called Callan May, aka Fire Night, which is where the Great Rite takes place. The goal of this party, hang on to your bat hats, is for Tamlin to pick a maiden to help him generate some magic. You can use your imaginations on what that means. This magic is going to help the lands flourish in the coming year. Now, Farrah is warned by literally everyone to stay in her room and not go, but of course she went anyway. And so she's like poking around, seeing all the things at this party. She's almost attacked by 3 male fairies when a random man, who is conveniently the most beautiful man she has ever seen, pops up out of nowhere, and he saves her from the trio. We later find out this is Rhys. The night also ends on a weird note with Tamlin trying to make a move on her, which Farrah does decline. I mean, he was just with another woman. I feel like the Great Rite is weird, if that's not obvious. Yes. I feel like it has such little significance to the story. I think Callan May, great. Why can't that just be the party where they generate? Like, why do we need to have this creepy party?
If I'm thinking like SJM for a minute, which, you know, I would be blessed to have her mine, it does really like solidify that Tamlin is getting the feels for Farrah, because when Lucian finds her there, they like lock eyes, and Lucian's like, oh crap, you know, and he runs to her and he like runs her back to the house and is like, what are you doing here? If he smells you or scents you or whatever, he would, you know, try to find you. And so basically he's saying like he would pick you over all these other maidens. So if he even smells you, he's going to go crazy. So now I have to like help direct him to a different maiden. But I definitely don't think it had to be in that way. Like, I have questions.
Yeah, I can't shame her for going. I just wish that the party had a different theme.
Yeah, agree.
That's all.
So Farrah continues to hear about a mysterious she, who we have no idea who they're referring to yet, and the blight that is threatening their lands. She attends the summer solstice. Okay, so new party, no weird rituals going on that we know of. And what does Farrah do? Like any good girl at a party away from her family, she gets drunk off that fairy wine. She dances the night away with Tamlin, who finally kisses her. So we finally get proof that, you know, it's mutual. Farrah's got feels, Tam's got feels. It's cute. They like each other. Smooch, smooch. We love it. Interesting turn of events, though, considering like a hot minute ago, she didn't want to be anywhere near him, and she was literally trying to do anything she could to get away from him. It's giving enemies to lovers vibes, and we love that.
When you see this book advertised, is it advertised as an enemies to lovers trope?
It might be.
Yeah, my comment on that's not relating just to ACOTAR. When you see a book described as enemies to lovers, do you feel like that's a spoiler?
100%.
If it is one book, if it is a standalone, and it's enemy, okay, I get it. if you love that kind of book,
Yeah.
love that you can access a list like that. But if you are advertising a
know.
book as enemies to lovers,
know.
well, now I know. The enemy is the lover.
So the day after summer solstice, Lucian becomes a bearer of bad news, saying that his contact at the winter court has sent word that 24 people have been taken out by the blight. That is no bueno. Other courts are being hit hard, but the night court remains untouched. All of a sudden, who shows up to the Springcourt Manor? Reese, a.k.a. the beautiful man who saved Farah from the 3 fairies on Fire Night. Him and our 2 pals, Tam Tam and Lucian, are going back and forth, bickering as they do best, while hiding Farah behind a glamour. When Reese peeks at the table setting, he notices there are 3 table settings here. 3 plates, 3 spoons, 3 knives, whatever. And he realizes, they're hiding somebody from me, and he does not like that. He is PO'd. So he finds Farah hidden behind Lucian, and he does some weird stuff in her head, controlling her, asking her for her name. Farah doesn't give him her real name. She lies and tells him her name is Claire Better. That is the first name that comes to mind, and it is a friend of Nessa's from their home village. After Reese leaves, Tamlin is fuming. So he goes on a little rampage around the manor and, has a little temper tantrum. This is the first indication we've really gotten that Tam Tam might have some anger issues. This is the first time we've seen him really, really angry and taking it out on things around him. He apologizes, but tells Farah he's sending her back home because he can't keep her safe. So Farah asks, okay, well, what about the treaty? You said I had to live here my whole life. And Tamlin says he will take on her debt. And if anyone comes asking, they'll have to deal with him. This is a confusing time for our gal. First of all, she's 19. And being a teen is confusing for us all. But she's 19 and she's dealing with 2 worlds, mortal, immortal, blights, beastly boys who like her and don't and want her to stay but now want her to go. She's got a lot going on. So she's like, okay, on one hand, this is what I've wanted the whole time, a way out. But on the other hand, this place and this man's is starting to feel like home to her. She's getting used to where she's living, the people around her. I mean, she's feeling cozy here. So basically, Tamlin tells Farah, you gotta go. But before you go, we're going to do the deed. We're going to get intimate. We're going to, do what we've been wanting to do this whole time. They have their little spicy moment. And then afterwards, instead of spooning the night away, he's like, actually, I need you to leave tomorrow. So Farah is packing, saying her goodbyes while Tamlin is waiting for her in front of the carriage. And he just, so casually, drops the L-bomb. Love ya, Farah. Not love ya. I love you, to be specific.
There was the 3. I love you.
I love you. And what does she say? Nothing. She says nothing. She doesn't say it back. She can't say it back because she isn't sure how she feels yet. She left Tam Tam on red. I'm so sorry, Tam. Not great timing. She is leaving. They just had their night together. She's still trying to figure things out. She's mad that she has to leave. She's not this isn't her choice now.
I think she said something about how maybe she was feeling it, but she didn't want to express it because she didn't want it to be a burden for him to hold on to that emotion for her. She just wants to leave and have him kind of forget about the whole thing. But he does say, I think he says something along the lines of this isn't forever. I'll see you soon, but don't know when that is.
Okay, so Farah's getting caught up at home. Everyone thinks that she was with her dying aunt who left her all of her riches, except Nessa's looking at her kind of weird. And Farah's like, what's up, Ness? And we'll find out a little bit more about this soon. Farah's dad isn't limping anymore because of magic, thanks Tam Tam, and they're all trying to plan this extravagant ball for Farah's return. Life should feel good here, considering Farah is safe, her family's safe, they're doing well, they're fed, they have everything they need, but something in her cannot help but remember what the Surreal said. Stay with the High Lord, and she feels that is where she should be. So Farah finds out why Ness has been acting all weird and reveals that the glamour didn't work on her. This is so interesting to me, and I definitely want to talk about this in our next episode, so stay tuned for that. But Nessa confides to Farah that she knew this whole time. She remembered everything, the beast ripping their house apart. She even kept, I think it was like a little piece of their table that like had claw mark in it, so that she knew she wasn't crazy. Because our poor girl Nessa was like, does anybody remember that beast that came and took Farah? And her dad and sister were like, oh, what are you talking about? She's with her aunt, living life, helping our great old aunt. And Nessa's like, am I cuckoo?
Not only did she know, she went to try to cross the wall to get to Farah.
Yes. And I love when they talk about this, because in the beginning of the book, they talk about Nesta, and she's wants to marry this guy, Thomas Mandray, and he's going to propose her soon. Claire Better tells her this. And Farrah's like, don't marry Thomas Mandray. Even though Farrah like secretly has this fantasy of all of her sisters being married off so that her and her dad could just like live alone, which is a little bit weird, but so they can just live by themselves. And she only has 2 mouths to feed. Her mom just wanted the girls to be taken care of and like married off well. So we find out when Nesta remembered the whole Beastie Boy come and take Farrah, as an amazing, wonderful, good sister that she is, she freaking tries to cross the wall. And she realizes in this moment that Thomas Mandray would not cross the wall with her. That is her new gauge of deciding if somebody is like worthy to be in her life or not. Like, would you cross the wall with me to help save my sister? And Thomas Mandray's like, no. So we find out she's not going to marry Thomas Mandray anymore. She knew where Farrah was the whole time. She was worried about her. She thought she was losing her mind. I feel for Nessa, and she's like starting to get on my good side a little bit. Okay, so Nessa and Farrah are having their little like sister catch-up bonding moment. We know Nessa knows everything. Farrah is telling Nesta how she's been feeling lately, which is, I need to be back with my High Lord. I can't believe I left him. The Surreal gave me one job. The Surreal said to stay with the High Lord, and what did I do? I left and didn't put up a fight. And I remember Lucian was salty with Farrah too. Like, wow, basically like, you're going to give up that easy? And yeah, she did. She left. Okay, so at this point, Farrah is ready to trek back into Prythian. But before she makes her trip, she learns about the Better family house fire and that everyone was found dead except for Claire. Her body is missing. Now, if you remember, when Reese came to Tamlin's manor and asked Farrah what her name was, she said Claire Better. So Farrah is going pale. She's looking like, oh my goodness.
Is this
my fault? Yeah. So Farrah's like, did I do that? You might have. We don't think this is a coincidence. And we're concerned. And now Farrah is scared. She's genuinely scared, and she's feeling horrible. And with that, our girl Farrah is headed back to the spring court to save her man's Tam. Unfortunately, when she arrives to the manor, it is looking rough. I mean, the gates are like ripped open, shingles are missing, the door is wide open. It is a ghost town. Nobody's there. Something is seriously wrong. She rushes inside the manor and finds it empty.
She finds Alice, who confirms that Tamlin and Lucian are both alive, but that our mysterious she, who we learn is named Amarantha, took them under the mountain, aka that big mountain range that Farrah saw on the mural back when she was at the manor. Why are they there? Because the curse was over and Tamlin hadn't been able to break it. Okay, what curse are we talking about? It's not really an easy answer, and it does require a brief history lesson. So Amarantha hates humans, along with any high fae who defends humans, because her younger sister Clythia fell in love with some dude named Jurian, who was a human warrior that was low-key using her for information, and he ends up betraying, torturing, killing her. So the beef is valid. Because of this, Amarantha wants to destroy the entire mortal realm, but she can't do it on her own, so she stole some of, but not all of, the powers of the 7 High Lords at a ball by drugging their wine with some magic. So I think it's important to note that means Tamlin is operating at not full capacity right now. Him in beast form, not full capacity.
Also, the other thing we have learned here, do not drink the wine. Okay? Just don't drink the wine. Don't do it.
It's clearly not going to work out well for you.
No.
There's so many warnings throughout this book. But anyway, with all of this, we learn that Amarantha is the blight that they keep referencing in this entire book. She is the sickness that is in the lands.
I am so glad that we solved that mystery, because reading this, it was like, what? Who is the blight? What is the blight? Sickness. I honestly never thought that the sickness was going to be a person.
Yeah, I agree. When I hear the word blight, I think about I think of the potato famine. I don't know. I thought that it was going to be some illness that has spread to the mortal realm. Nope. It's just Amarantha being bossy babe. In addition to all of this, Amarantha lusted for Tamlin, which was unreciprocated, and Lucian was sent as Tamlin's emissary to try to play a little middleman peacemaker between the two of them. But Amarantha, being bitter as heck, she refused, and Lucian kind of said not so nice things to her, which led to Lucian's eye being taken out as punishment, and she scarred his face, hence his little metal contraption that we know he wears. After that, Amarantha hosted a masquerade under the mountain for herself where all of the courts were present, and it was intended to be a party to make amends for what she did to Lucian, and having everyone wear a mask meant Lucian specifically didn't have to reveal the scarring that was on his face, so everyone shows up, they're wearing masks, and Tamlin does agree to go to try to end this conflict between the two of them. But of course, there's a catch. Amarantha would only maintain peace if Tamlin agreed to be her lover. Why is Amarantha so desperate?
She loves Tam Tam. Like, also, why would you want somebody who's with you only because they're like forced to be? And another note, I actually love that she held a masquerade for herself. I'm here for that.
Have your party girl. But she does the same thing with Rhys, right? Like,
yeah.
She forces Rhys to be her lover. It's freaking weird. Tamlin said that he would rather take a human to bed, sooner marry a human than ever touch her. I think this is it's like the fair equivalent to saying, if you were the last person on earth,
yes.
I wouldn't even touch you, whatever,
yes.
blah, blah, blah.
It's
offensive. But lo and behold, we find out what our curse is. Amarantha cursed Tamlin 7 times 7 years before he had to join her under the mountain. For our non-math folks, that's 49 years. 7 times 7 is 49. So all Tamlin needed to do was find a human girl that was willing to marry him, but it had to be a human who hated fairies. The girl could only be brought here if she killed one of his men in an unprovoked attack, for hatred alone, just as Jurian had done to Clythia. The goal of that curse was for Tamlin to be able to understand her sister's pain. So, Danny, we're going to run a checklist. Was Farah a human who hated fairies?
Yes. She explicitly said when she killed the wolfie that she would have no remorse if it was actually a fairy.
Correct. Did she kill one of Tamlin's men in an unprovoked attack?
She sure did, aka the wolfie.
Okay, third item on the checklist. Did Tamlin find a human girl willing to marry him, saying that she loved him?
Not quite. As we know, she did not say I love you back to Tamlin. If she did, we would be reading a whole different story right now.
Yeah, so the TLDR is that Farah failed them all. The only other thing she had to do was say, I love you, back to Tamlin, and she didn't.
That's it.
Now, Farah, since she loves being a little risk taker, of course, asks how she can get under the mountain, and Alice hesitates a little bit, but she does end up leading Farah through the woods, drops her off at a cave mouth, and gives Farah a few rules to remember before she heads under the mountain. 1, don't drink the wine. We've spoken about that enough this episode. It's not going to be a fun time. 2, do not make deals with anyone unless your life depends on it. And 3, do not trust a soul in there, not even Tamlin, as your senses might betray you. Farah does all of these things. She literally does 1, 2, and 3.
Classic Farah.
With that, she walks into the cave and she decides to veer off the path to get there faster, which is another one of her daring moves that we love. But who finds her? Hey, it's the Adder. The Adder brings Farah to the throne room where Amarantha is sitting with Tamlin, who's seemingly unfazed by Farah's presence. As we're going under the mountain, we get a few glimpses of Tamlin being unfazed by Farrah or like not really seeming alarmed that she's there or attentive. What do you think overall about how he acted under the mountain?
I had a lot of thoughts about this. My first thought was, okay, he's obviously acting or under a spell or something's up. I think it's sus. I feel like there's definitely a reason he's acting this way, but it's always wild to me when someone can just completely shut off their emotions like that.
It's weird. Moral of the story, it's weird. If you saw Tim under the mountain, I get it.
Yeah.
You want to refrain, but you can't tell me that your eyes, your body language wouldn't show some type of care for the fact that this person, not only, this is someone who you sent back to the mortal realm. Like, they are not even supposed to be in Prithian. They're here. They've shown up for you. And you're just like, I don't know her. Anyway, Amarantha has a creepy human eye ring on her finger that seemingly has a bit of life to it. It's blinking. The eye can move. She also wears a necklace with a bony finger on it. Don't know who it belongs to yet, but it's weird. As Farrah is moving about under the mountain, she also comes across the body of our poor Claire Better. She did not make it. Girl is dead. I won't get into the graphics of how they displayed her, but it did not end well for our pal, Claire Better. I do think it's important to note that Claire Better, this is the person that everyone believed to be Farrah. So I think as Farrah's looking at Claire Better's dead body, that could have been me. And this is what Amarantha wants to do to me. So she's on high alert. Not that she wasn't before, but seeing Claire's body here, the person that Amarantha thought was her, the odds are not looking good for Farrah to make it back out from under the mountain. So Amarantha, being so kind, she tells Farrah that she can have Tamlin back, but she just has to complete 3 super simple tasks of Amarantha's choosing. And it's going to be 1 task per month at the full moon. So Farrah's like, okay, down. Like, say less, I'm in. But couple rules that you got to follow here with me, Amarantha. Tamlin's curse is going to be broken for good, and all of his court is going to be able to leave and remain free forever. So Amarantha's like, okay, bet, girl. Handshake, a deal is a deal, baby. I'll do you one better. You don't even have to do the 3 trials. You just have to answer a silly little riddle for me. I'm going to read the riddle. Okay? There are those who seek me a lifetime, but we never meet. And those I kiss, but who trample me beneath ungrateful feet. At times I seem to favor the clever and the fair, but I bless all those brave enough to dare. By large my ministrations are soft-handed and sweet, but scorned I become a difficult beast to defeat. For though each of my strikes lands a powerful blow, when I kill slow.
Ooh.
Be honest, Danny, did you figure out the riddle?
Absolutely not. No, not at all.
I feel like it's a huge divide on social media. I got it like the second I read it, and I was like, I got it the second I read it, and I was like, it can't be that easy. Like, there's no way that this is the riddle. And I was getting so frustrated. And then I see that there's this whole population of people who are like, nope, didn't get it.
Nope, I'm them. Okay, so Farrah didn't get the riddle, sadly, and is placed in a prison cell under the mountain until it's time for test number 1. And oh yeah, the other High Lords have also been summoned under the mountain and aren't allowed to leave until Farrah has completed her trials. Hope they have cleared their schedules because it might be a while for poor Farrah. For her first trial, the Adder drops Farrah into a mud pit of tunnels, and Amarantha frees a giant worm to kill her. I cannot help but think about the Alaskan bullworm from SpongeBob.
Same. I have not seen this posted. I might be oblivious to the post on social media. I have not seen it, and it was the first thought that I had.
Yes.
I think it's so funny that we both agreed on that.
Yes.
And I haven't seen it anywhere.
The worm comes in hot, trying to kill our gal Farrah with its sharp, human flesh-shredding teeth. It is going left, it's right, it's following her in and out of the tunnels. She cannot get away from the worm. So Farrah, ever the clever huntress, ends up covering herself head to toe in mud so that the worm can't smell her. She is smart. She realizes it is following her scent. So she's covering her body, head to toe. Literally, her eyeballs are the only thing peeking out. And she creates a trap in the pit of bone shards that she finds there, probably from a previous snack of the worms. And she slams all these shards in the ground with the sharp part facing up. And she basically lures the worm into a position where if it followed her, it would also have to jump into the pit and get, hopefully impaled by these sharp shards of human or fey bones. So she does just that. She covers herself with mud. She runs around. She jumps in the pit, leaving herself just a small area to land. I'm glad she's got good aim, because otherwise she's getting impaled. And right as she jumps, she feels this sharp pain in her arm and realizes the worm has gotten a piece of her arm. But the worm falls with her and hits the shards and dies. She has survived the first trial. Thank gosh. It honestly was an intense scene, and I was worried for our gal.
Was it this trial or was it the next trial where there were bets placed on if she would survive? And I think that only one person, Reese, bet that she would survive. Was it the first challenge or was it?
I can't remember, but I do remember that in this trial, the worm is getting close to her and Lucian can see. So everyone's like up in the arena and all the fae can see. And I think this was the one where Lucian was like, on your left or on your right. And he helps her and he gets in big trouble for that, which we'll learn about in a little bit, because you're not allowed to interfere apparently. And that just shows that there's definitely a genuine friendship there. So Farah is back in her cell to recover and wait out the time until the next trial, aka the next full moon. Her battle wound is still bleeding, and all in all, she is not doing so hot. She gets a visit from Reese while she's in her cell. He comes to see her and tells her he can heal her arm, but in exchange, she has to come visit him at the night court once per month, which she declines. Honestly, don't blame her. Everything we've heard about the night court so far is not so hot. It's a spooky, scary place per everybody else. But he points out that she is dying, likely from an infection in her arm, and he is her only chance. Nobody's come to see her. It's been a hot minute. It's a couple days. She's got no other options. So eventually she caves and makes a bargain with him.
Why do I feel like Farah... I actually didn't pick up on this until you were just saying it right now. The past X amount of weeks, months that she's been... like in this new life, she just has men making bargains with her. Not men, fairies, high fae, making high lords, making bargains with her for her time, for her life in exchange. And I'm like,
what she got that I don't?
She just got it like that. She's a wanted woman.
Yeah, this bargain was interesting to me for a couple reasons, because my first thought was, why the heck does he want her for a day, a month? That's just weird, or week. That's so interesting to me. And the other thing that I thought about was Alice's warning of don't make a bargain unless your life depends on it, which, I mean, her life kind of depends on it here, so fair.
I think she made a comment internally at the book that if she didn't receive help with her arm, that at that point she probably wouldn't make it. It was gnarly at that point.
Yeah, she was like feverish, sweating, like infection was definitely setting in. So our girl needs some help, and Reese came to the rescue, surprisingly, to all of us. So ACOTAR 101. When you make a bargain, you get covered in a tattoo. So Farah wakes up with her left arm covered with tattoos, swirls, I believe they say, and a large eye tattooed in the middle of her palm. First of all, ouch, if that was an actual tattoo. Second of all, weird. I'm a little bit jealous because tattoos are expensive. So this girl just wakes up with like a full sleeve. She's kind of lucky.
And also, what's up with these people and having eyeballs?
I know. Yeah, I guess we're like really into eyes and Prithian. So Farah's in a prison cell, minding her own business. She's not dying anymore, thankfully. She's got her tattoo. The bargain is set. And she's visited by two servants who get her dressed up for a party. Interesting when you think about it, because she's literally like in prison and she's supposed to be, you know, waiting, resting up for her next trial. But she has to attend these parties with Reese. So she's dancing for him. She's getting drunk on fairy wine. She's remembering none of this. I mean, she is blacking out, which honestly, I think about it might be for the best because she would be so embarrassed if she thought about how she's dancing basically on Rhys's lap in front of Tamlin and Amarantha and all the other High Lords at this party like she's just some little plaything. It's so, so cringe. And we don't know at this time what Rhys's angle is yet, but we learn that he was trying to piss Tamlin off, which is great because he did. So his point was he wanted to make Tamlin so mad that Tamlin would like bust out of this, facade that he has put on where he is so unbothered by everything and his powers would unleash and he would basically kill Amarantha. That was Rhys's hope. So this happened night after night. Can you imagine getting so drunk that you black out every single night and then having to like wake up in this prison cell in this place that it's dark, you're not in your like, it just sounds horrible. I feel so bad for Farrah during this whole time. Like she's awaiting her next death trial basically and having to get blackout drunk every single night and embarrass herself.
This is why when I said I would have chosen death at the beginning of this when we were back in the mortal realm, this is what I meant.
Fair. Okay, so time is flying. Maybe not for Farrah in her dark little drunk cell, but it's time for task number 2. Farrah once again is lowered into a pit, but this time she sees Lucien chained to the floor, separated from her. In this trial, she has to answer a time-limited question by pulling the correct lever. All the while, this big gate with spikes is coming down closer and closer toward Lucien. So let's not forget here, Farrah can't read. This is a bit of a problem. So when the question and potential answers are written on the wall, that's going to be a little hard for our gal. So she is winging it. I mean, we've all been there. Multiple choice, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. She grabs the second lever. She's like, this'll do. I'm just going to pick number 2. Pick number 2, my lord. And all of a sudden, her hand is hurting her. The same hand she's got the creepy eye tattoo on. So she tries to pull it again, and the pain returns. She realizes that this bond, which is a connection with Rhys, is trying to tell her, no, sis, don't pull that lever. So instead, she pulls a third one, stops the gate that's coming down with spikes to crush Lucien, and she wins trial number 2. Thanks, Rhys. And also, Farrah, everyone knows that when you don't know the answer, you pick C. And if you're wondering why Lucien's the one that is chained to the floor of this pit, awaiting his doom unless Farrah helps save him, it's because he told Farrah which way the bullworm was coming so she can get out of the way. And this was his punishment from Amarantha because we know she loves to punish. Before you know it, Farrah is called to the third trial in the throne room. Tamlin is sitting next to Amarantha, and Farrah looks up at her beloved Tamlin and confesses her love to him. A little late, Farrah. Okay, you could have done this like a few weeks ago, and none of this would have happened. That would have been great. So Amarantha explains that for this final trial, she must kill 3 innocent fairies by stabbing them in the heart with an ashwood dagger. 3 figures are brought in with sacks over their head and forced to their knees. Farrah really struggles with this trial, as any morally sound human would, but she weighs the pros and cons of killing these innocent fairies and freeing all of Prythian versus refusing to kill them, dying herself, and killing everyone, and everyone still remaining slaves to Amarantha. I took this as Farrah not really caring about preserving her life in this sense, but she was really thinking about the whole picture. Like, if it was just, okay, kill Farrah, but everyone else would still be freed, I think she would choose that option. But she's thinking about everybody else, except for the 3 fairies in front of her. Neither options are good. She has to pick the lesser evil of them. So I feel for her here. She barely makes it through the first and second killing and knows that there is only one more fairy standing between her and Prythian's freedom. But when the hood is taken off of the last fairy, it's revealed to be Tamlin. How is that possible? Because we know our guy Tamlin is sitting up next to Amarantha, except he's not, because when Farrah looks up at the throne at Amarantha and who she thought was Tamlin 2.0, if you will, he turns into the adder. Once again, fooled. As she looks at this impossible dilemma in front of her with his big green eyes, Farrah remembers Alice telling her that there was another part of the curse that would help her. She just needed to remember what she has heard. So basically, people have been trying to drop hints to Farah about this other part of the curse. However, with Amarantha's power, they weren't able to actually speak it. So Farah has to figure it out on her own. And if the riddle is any indication of her figuring these things out, it's not looking good for us. So Farah suddenly remembers that on 2 separate occasions, she overheard Lucian and then the Adder saying that Tamlin has a heart of stone. And she realizes, wait, I don't think this is a coincidence. He might literally have a heart of stone. And if that's the case, then she can't actually kill Tamlin, which makes sense because Farah's thinking, why would Amarantha want Tamlin dead when she's been jonesing for this guy this whole time? So she takes the dagger and plunges it into his heart. But wait, she hears a thud. Phew, her theory was right. That was risky, taking that chance. But Tam Tam really does have a heart of stone.
Yeah, and you know what? Farah, while she does a lot of really impulsive things, she's very quick on her feet and her mind goes 100 miles an hour. Like, okay, so she's like trying to rack her brain for, okay, what do I think I might have overheard? And she just gets that on the spot, like, oh yeah, heart of stone.
She really puts things together, like the mercenary, something she's heard. Like, she has a pretty good memory, and I very much appreciate that. And that's something consistent throughout the book. So Farah wins the trials and everyone's free to go, right? Wrong. Amarantha said she would only free them all immediately if Farah got the answer to the riddle. Well, as we know, she did not. Then we have a full-on brawl start. I'm talking like Mean Girls cafeteria style brawl. Amarantha begins to attack Farah. Rhys comes in and tries to stab Amarantha unsuccessfully. Tamlin is begging Amarantha not to kill Farah when finally Farah realizes the answer to the riddle is love. Thanks, Farah.
Woo!
Woo! All you need is love. Farah says the answer just before Amarantha breaks her spine and kills her. Then we get Farah's out-of-body point of view. She can see herself laying there dead, but how? Oh, wait, she is looking through the eyes of Rhys. She sees Tamlin unleash his power, finally, in a flash of bright light as he slams Amarantha into the wall, puts a sword through her head, and rips out her throat. The Wicked Witch is dead.
Bye.
Bye. Then the High Lord of the Autumn Court approaches Farah's dead body, opens his hand, and a glittery spark falls from it and enters her chest. He is then followed by all of the other High Lords. It appears that they are trying to bring her back to life, basically.
I'm surprised that all we know about this High Lord of the Autumn Court from before is that he's not a nice dude, right? This is the same guy who had Lucian's lover sent to be executed, and now he's the first one to step up to resurrect Farah.
Yes. That also surprises me in the fact that everybody would be like, you have to get all 7 of them on board. It is so easy for one person to be like, no, I don't really care about her that much. Our girl Farah wakes up, but her body is no longer broken. She realizes she has become high fae and is now immortal. Her and Tamlin immediately celebrate her immortality, if you know what I mean. And then they head back on over to the Spring Court. I could not help but think about Breaking Dawn. This was giving me serious Bella Swan vibes. Like, brand new vampire. She's got all of the vampire-y, like, heightened senses and things. Yeah, this was 100% giving Twilight vibes to me.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel that. I'll agree with you on that.
Okay, let's finish this off.
Our next episode, which will come out next Wednesday, January 31st, will be bonus content covering all of our foreshadowing and thoughts on this book as it pertains to the rest of the series. This episode will be full of spoilers, so only tune in if you have finished the entire series. You have been warned. We will continue our book recaps with A Court of Mist and Fury on February 7th. For those of you that took time out of your days to listen to us, we love you and we're so thankful and happy that you're here.
If you like what we have to say and want to hear more, hit that follow button on your favorite listening platform so that you never miss an episode. And please leave us a review to help us reach others just like you. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Batty Girls Book Club. Stay batty!